Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new, welcome to my channel. My name is Abby and I am a stay-at-home homeschooling mom of 4 little ones, or not so little ones, I keep saying that, but I do have an official preteen now. So we have been homeschooling all the way through, but that does not always look like what I think the general assumption is about homeschooling. We go through multiple seasons of life that require scheduling changes and life changes. And so what I wanted to do today, given the current state of events, is just share how we create a family rhythm as the seasons change, because there are never really 2 months or even weeks that look exactly the same. And so I thought it would be helpful right now to just share a general overview of how I create a rhythm, why I'm kind of against a schedule per se, and maybe that will help some of you guys who have found yourselves in a strange position right now, or just anybody out there, and hopefully in the future when this is all behind us, if you pop back on and you watch this video, maybe it will be helpful as you enter a different season of life. Today's video is in partnership with Variety Fun, and you guys have seen the Fit Box on my channel multiple times before, so today I'm showing you the Fun Box. Variety Fun has the Fun Box and the Fit Box. They are a monthly subscription service. You can get these snacks delivered once per month or twice per month. The Fun Box is full of 40 snacks and classic snacks and treats that you and your kids will love. The Fit Box has 30 snacks, and they are a little bit more on the healthier side. It's all a rotating variety, and it is, well, oh, I just clicked variety. It's all a rotating variety, and it's really fun to receive different snacks every month. Variety Fun, there you have it. So if you guys would like to get 30% off of your first box, go ahead and check out the link and the discount code in the description box below. So when I am creating a rhythm for our family, there are a few things that I like to keep in mind. The first priority for me is delayed gratification. So that kind of looks like waiting on my kids playing with their toys or even playing with one another until after we get, say, our schoolwork done and things like that, because I think that that is a natural motivation for them, and then therefore requires much less discipline or reminders, because when they have that goal in mind and when they're used to knowing that that opportunity is coming, it tends to motivate them to get things done on their own. The second thing that I keep in mind when it comes to creating a rhythm and a routine for our family is our priorities and our habits. And so oftentimes, of course, priorities when I'm a homeschooling parent is school. But those priorities can also be our extracurriculars, etc. And then the third thing I keep in mind is relationship, and not overwhelming myself, not overwhelming my kids, and just kind of leaving enough wiggle room there for relationship to not suffer. And that is exactly the reason why a perfectly timed schedule is something that I don't love, because generally you're going to come to a point in time, and for me, I have 4 kids and then my husband and myself, so there's 6 people in our house. If one person is having an off day, a schedule is not going to be perfectly executed, and you're going to end up kind of grinding your gears to make it work, and then relationship is what suffers. And relationship for me is a really high priority over math or reading. So those are the 3 things that I generally keep in mind, and now I'm going to kind of break it down for you guys and explain what that looks like. So one of the things I mentioned was delayed gratification, and generally what I do when I'm scheduling is I start backwards. I schedule backwards. I start with bedtime and then fill in the gaps of things that I know my kids will want to do. So we of course have bedtime. Before that, they have to do baths and showers. Before that, we have dinner and clean up from dinner. So starting up from dinner, I want my kids to have solid time together playing. I want them to play with their toys. I want them to enjoy crafting and playing outside and doing all of the things that they want to do. I also want that time to be positive. So what I do is I don't allow them to get into their toys and get into, you know, big projects before we get our priorities out of the way, because then they're kind of already satisfying that desire and they're not as excited about it later on. And like I said, that causes a lack of motivation. I mean, that's how I am even as an adult, and I can remember being the same way as a child. If I know that there is a show, like for example, I love the show Longmire. I'm like totally binge watching it right now. I'm almost done with it. I love watching an episode of Longmire every night when my kids go to bed. So generally that means that I'm actually going to really not fuss about doing the dishes. I am going to like do everything diligently because I have that goal in mind and I'm looking forward to that. So I'm wanting to teach my kids that habit. It's a really good habit that serves you well in life. And so I kind of start backwards, build up from bedtime, dinner time, and I like to make sure that there is a solid amount of time for them to have something that they've earned and that they are, is there just a fly? Ah! I swear there's a fly here somewhere. Me versus the flies for the rest of my life. Our doors are always open. Anyway, but I want them to have that time to look forward to every day. So I start backwards, like I said, and I make sure that there is time for them to earn something and to really enjoy some time together. If, like I said, I had given them that time earlier in the day, it's not only going to keep them a little unmotivated during the day, but it's also not going to be as exciting to them when they get to that. And because we're a family that doesn't do much screen time or TV or anything, those are really important times for me. I want them to be eager to get to their Legos. I want them to be eager to get back to projects that they had started the day prior. And so that's what that delayed gratification looks like when I'm scheduling. The next thing I talked about was relationship, and like I said, that is a really high priority for me as well, and that is one of the reasons that we chose to homeschool in the first place, was just to keep working on those little details of relationships that oftentimes slip through the crack when they're not around one another daily and I'm not around them daily. And so in order to make that a priority when it comes to scheduling, my number one tip is to not overwhelm, not your kids, but yourself. When I have a lot on my schedule, my response to my kids tend to get shorter and shorter and more frustrated because I'm overwhelmed. Equally, when my kids are overwhelmed or when they don't know what's coming up next in our routine, they can get just as overwhelmed or frustrated and have the same response. And so then you take one parent who's overwhelmed by a busy schedule, you take kids who are overwhelmed not knowing what's coming up next because there's no consistency, and that's like the perfect storm. And so I try to leave space for myself and for them to get a few things done, but I also try to communicate with them so that they know what's coming up next, because everyone knows that a kid really needs to know what's happening, because when everything looks a little scary and they don't know what's coming up next, especially for younger ones, that can lead to the whining or the confusion or the desire to satisfy a need, you know. And so I like to keep in communication with the kids, and that's another reason why rhythm over schedule is so important, because if schedule is the focus and you've got like 10, 10:30, 11, 11:30, 12, 12:30, and that falls apart, you can't really get back on the horse. When you have a rhythm that your kids are very used to and they generally know, we're gonna do school, then we're gonna have lunch, and after lunch we're gonna go outside, then we get to play with our Legos, then we have dinner time when daddy comes home, and then we generally, you're talking about larger spaces of time, but they generally know what's happening next, and that also helps cultivate positive relationship between you and them and one another, and just in their thinking lives, to be honest. And then the main structure of our rhythm and routine is our priorities and our habits. Now, the habits are pretty concrete. Habits are something that really serve you well in life, and that's something that we've worked from the get-go with our kids on really cultivating. So in the morning, of course, that's leaving space and time for them to do their hygiene and their morning chores and setting themselves up for success, making their beds and creating a peaceful atmosphere. It's their evening, you know, habits of doing their chores and and practicing their music, and some of them like to write in journals and those types of habits. It's movement throughout the day. That's a habit that we really wanted to teach them, is just knowing when your body needs to move and knowing when mentally you need to kind of take a break and move. So those, that is a concrete part of our rhythm. But then our priorities, that is a thing that fluctuates so much, but it's also something that's really, really important in our days. So for the most part, our priorities are usually our schoolwork, time outdoors, and then our extracurriculars. And as you know, that can change because there are seasons where somebody's sick or where it's summertime and for whatever reason, schoolwork is not a priority. There are times like right now where all of our extracurriculars are canceled, and so that is not a priority. And those tend to be the main building blocks of our routine and our family rhythm, is looking at what the priorities are, figuring out where to fit that in, and then everything else can kind of find a place in spite of that. And then within those priorities, there can be kind of mini priorities. So like I said, schoolwork is one of our priorities. So I'll kind of put that in usually between 8 and 12, generally between breakfast and lunch, so to speak. And within that, I can build out from there and say, we need to have our family subjects, we need to have our individual subjects. There's kind of many priorities within that umbrella of priorities. Or time outdoors, that can be when you break that down and say, between lunchtime and dinner time, or lunchtime and an afternoon snack time, we should have some time outdoors, and that's what the kids are used to. But that again can also look different. That can be nature study, that can be a sport, that can be playing with friends, that can be going on a bike ride or a walk, or it can just be playing unsupervised in the backyard. So within those building blocks, or within those big blocks, there are little mini building blocks. But again, this is just kind of like a general how I create routine, because I don't want to tell anybody what they should be doing with their time. So when I say between breakfast and lunch, or between lunch and afternoon snack, I'm not telling you that that's the right time to be doing that, but I'm just kind of trying to give you the logic behind how I generally create rhythms. Now, a few details for those of you who are still sticking around here and I haven't totally lost. One thing that I think is important also is building in snack times that are consistent, especially if you are home educating or you have little ones who are always around, because you can feel like if you're just running to the kitchen every time they have a need, that you are spending all your time there and therefore cannot get to some of your priorities. So snack times are important. Generally ours are at 10 and 3. My kids have become very used to that over time. They need to know that something's coming, otherwise they're gonna ask 65,000 times. And so if they know and they're used to that being a part of their daily life, then they'll be aware of, that fear won't motivate them to ask. Because if they're thinking, and I'm thinking of one of my kids in particular, and you guys probably know who that is, but if they're thinking that, they're never gonna satisfy this hunger, then they're gonna ask you a million times because they're afraid. If they know that a snack time will in fact happen, they ask and you say, grab a piece of fruit because it's not necessarily snack time right now, they kind of understand, okay, this fear is not real, I will have a snack. And then it can kind of help de-escalate those thoughts, especially if they're really young. Another thing is, I learned this at a parenting conference a long time ago when my kids were toddlers, and that was really great advice. And that advice is to have a daily hit list. And if whatever doesn't fit on that hit list one day can be popped over to the next day, or you can start adding things to the days ahead. And I think that's really important tip in light of what's going on right now, because a lot of us have daily work and daily lives. For example, I work online, and my kids, when they're at dance or when they're at sports practice, if that's a day that John was taking them, I usually have 2 hours to get online work done. Right now, everything's canceled, and so I don't have such bulk time in my schedule, and so I need to really create a little hit list. And the advice I got about that was to make a list of things that kind of break everything down into things that take 10 minutes at a time. So for me, it's like 10 minutes of editing, or 10 minutes of dishes, or 10 minutes of this or that. And if those things don't fit, say you generally have an hour of free time in a day if you piece all your time together. Once you have 6 10-minute things on that list, then start adding a Tuesday hit list or a Wednesday hit list, or start moving some of the things off that Monday hit list and adding them to other days based on prioritizing. And that's really, really helpful, because when you start making lists of things you have to get done, you can see, one, what you can and cannot accomplish in a day, and therefore have to kind of outsource. Like, it's easy enough for me to ask one of my kids or ask John to take over some of those things for me. And two, you start managing your time well, and also stop overwhelming yourself unnecessarily. So a hit list is a really helpful tip that I received, and I've always been super thankful for that. And then another thing is, it's just totally, oh, this is something really random and a little quirk about me, but I really like symmetry in my schedule, and it got cut off. But I think that has also been really helpful to my kids. And if you guys recently had your kids home from school temporarily or long-term, I'm not sure really what's going on right now, but your kids may also be used to some kind of symmetrical schedule. A lot of the world works on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, or the week and the weekend kind of a schedule. And so generally, when I'm working on our school planning or meal planning or things like that, I like to plan symmetrically, just because, one, that's the way my brain works, but also the kids have just gotten really used to that over time. Okay, so those are my tips for creating a rhythm versus a minute-by-minute schedule. I hope that helps any of you guys who have found yourself in a strange place right now, or anybody who just needs a little boost. Writing these tips down actually encouraged me to kind of rework our current schedule, because like I said, with everybody's extracurriculars canceled and church and Bible study and everything kind of being thrown off right now, I want to use my time wisely and fill in those empty spaces with other priorities like family time, movie nights, game nights, and extra opportunities to learn and to read and to serve. So those are my thoughts. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below, one, how I can be praying for your family during this chaotic time, and two, what your daily rhythms are and what your priorities are in your family. I always think that's really interesting to hear. So thank you guys for watching today's video. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and be sure to be subscribed, because I'm going to be doing a little more content as we all kind of go through this kind of quiet season of life together. All right, see you guys later. Bye.